Today's topic is writing linear equations, Unit 3, Day 5. The objective is that you will be able to write linear equations. Now there's 3 forms of an equation that we've talked about so far and 2 that we really worked with quite a bit. The first is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, where m represents our slope and b represents our y-intercept. In the previous class, we were able to graph equations that were given in y-intercept form. For example, the graph y equals 3x plus 2. We know that m here is 3 and our b is 2. So if our y-intercept is 2, then we look at our y-axis, and from the origin we go up 1, and we go up 2, and then we have a coordinate point right there. If our m is equal to 3, then 3 is the same as 3 over 1. That means we're going to go up 3, which is our rise, and then over 1, which is our run. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then to the right 1, and that's our second point. And that's how we were able to graph equations using slope-intercept form. The second form of an equation is called standard form, ax plus by equals c. And this is when we would convert between standard and slope-intercept form. For example, if we had the equation 7x minus 2y equals 14, and we wanted to convert it into slope-intercept form, we would take the following steps. 7x minus 2y equals 14. Now the first thing that we need to do is subtract 7x, subtract 7x, get negative 2y equals negative 7x plus 14. And then we have to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. We're left with y equals 7 over 2x minus 7. Now we have our equation in slope-intercept form. Now the last form of an equation, and this one we haven't talked about as much, is called point-slope form. And it's y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1, where x1 and y1 are particular points that are known to be on our graph, and m is the slope. And then x and y are our variables, the same x and y that we see in slope-intercept form and in standard form. Now, first teacher example says, given the slope m equals 3 over 2 and our y-intercept b equals negative 4, write an equation in slope-intercept and standard form. So first, we want it in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Well, we already know m is 3/2 and b is negative 4. So all we have to do is plug in 3/2 and negative 4. Y equals 3/2 x minus 4. And that's our first answer. The second one says we want it in standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. So now we're doing the opposite of what we did right here. We're going to take y equals 3/2 x minus 4. Now remember that our a value has to be positive. And so what I'm going to do is leave my 3/2 x on this side of the equation because it's already a positive number. That means I need to get rid of what's on the other side. Right here, I'm going to add 4 and add 4 because my constant, my number, is on a different side as my x. So I have y plus 4 equals 3 over 2x. My x and my y are on the same side, so I'm going to subtract y so I can move my y over. Get 4 equals 3/2 x minus y. Now a, b, and c are always whole numbers, so I need to multiply all of this by a number to get rid of my denominator, my fraction bottom right there. And multiply that by 2. Then I'm going to multiply this side by 2. 2 times 4 is 8. And then this times 2, I'm left with 3x minus 2y. So when I rewrite that into a normal standard form, I get 3x minus 2y equals 8. And that's my equation in standard form. Try the first student example on your own. Now the second teacher example asks, what is the equation in standard form of a line that passes through the point 3, -1 and has a slope of 1/2? Now here, realize that we have a point instead of the y-intercept. That means 3, -1 is now our x1 and our y1. But our slope here is still just the same, 1/2. When you're given a point and a slope, you want to use a point-slope form of an equation. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So we start off by plugging in the values that were given. So y minus, and then y1 is -1. So see, we have our minus and negative right there, equals m is 1/2, and then x minus our x1 is 3. So we start simplifying. We have y minus a negative is the same as a plus 1, and then we have 1/2 x minus 3. Now it's just a long process of converting it into standard form. So the first thing that I'm going to do is distribute my 1/2. Y plus 1 equals 1/2 x minus 3 over 2. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is subtract my 1 here, subtract my 1 here, and I get y equals 1/2. And now I can do this using a calculator, or you can use your head, but I'll get -5 over 2. And at this point, what you recognize is this is our slope-intercept form. So once you get it to this point, we already know how to do this because we've done it before. Y equals 1/2 x minus 5 over 2. So again, my x needs to be positive. So I'm going to add 5 over 2 to this side, and I'll have 1/2 x, and I have y plus 5 over 2. I'm going to subtract y to both sides and get 5/2 equals 1/2 x minus y. I need to multiply by my denominator, which is a 2 here, is a 2 here, and I get 5 equals x minus 2y. When I rewrite that, x minus 2y equals 5. That's my equation in standard form. So I know that's a lot of steps. Give it your best bet and try number 2 on your own. Now when you write your summary, I want you to have one sentence, that's your main idea, and one question.